But if he were to pay American taxes, that would obviously make a big dent on his income. So he would not be able to resist their clutches for very much longer. So it's another step in the separation of the king's second son from the country of his birth and the country which he has said that he loves.
So we found out that Prince Harry has changed his primary country of residence, and we found out this information on Wednesday, but the date of change of his address was listed on the 29th of June last year. And reportedly, that's when the king asked him to leave Frogmore Cottage in Windsor. What do you make of these reports?
This really recognizes reality. His Royal Highness Prince Harry, Duke of Sussex, no longer has a residence, a home in Britain. Since he went into self-imposed exile, first to Canada and then California, he's lived outside this country. The king asked him after he left to vacate Frogmore Cottage, which had been converted to their specification, he and his wife, Meghan Markle. And now he lives, for all intents and purposes, in Montecito, California, in his hilltop Camelot, with his wife, Meghan, his two children, Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet, and their rescue chickens, and of course, round-the-clock shifts of burly security men. From now on, he is Prince Harry, Prince of Montecito. That is the reality of the situation. In Britain, if you are a company director, the company is registered at Companies House, and the directors have to give their details, their address, their name in full, and other personal details for the record. And that is how it's come to light that he is now a resident in his terms and in our terms in America. In February, he gave an interview to American ABC network in which he said, in reply to a question, that he was giving serious consideration to becoming an American citizen. This would seem to be the next step of separation from the United Kingdom. But it's a very big question for him, because if you do become an American citizen, you are then taxed on your earnings worldwide. Mm-hmm. And he's a very rich young man. When his mother was so tragically killed in 1997, he and his brother both inherited a large sum of money from his late mother in the realm each of £7 million. And obviously, much has been added to that since. But if he were to pay American taxes, that would obviously make a big dent on his income. In America, the IRS, the Internal Revenue System, doesn't take any prisoners. Every American knows that it pursues them to get the last penny, the last cent, the last dollar out of them. Now, after all, it was the IRS that sent the gangster Al Capone to prison, not for gangsterism, not for hooliganism, but for a tax fraud. So he would not be able to resist their clutches for very much longer. So it's another step in the separation of the king's second son from the country of his birth and the country which he has said that he loves.
And we've seen that even in America, there's been some pressure being put on the US government to release Prince Harry's visa records. What are your thoughts on that situation?
It's an interesting case. In America, there's a right-wing pressure group called the Heritage Foundation. And they've been pushing the Department of Homeland Security, which is in charge of these things, to have released the visa application form that Prince Harry filled in when he was first permitted to enter the country from Canada, where he and Meghan Markle were staying initially after they left Britain. And what the Heritage Foundation want to know is how Prince Harry answered the question, and the question was quite simply, do you or have you ever used illicit drugs, or are you a drug addict? You've got to tick yes or no. Well, if he ticked no, there is strong circumstantial evidence that that may not have been the truth, because in his book, his autobiography, which was actually written by an American journalist, Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, J.R. Muringer, he repeatedly says it's littered with references to smoking weed, cannabis. He says he took cocaine but didn't much like it. And he also ingested magic mushrooms, which would suggest that he was a habitual or regular drug user. Now, in America, if you're making a visa application and that comes up, you would normally not be granted a visa. There are exceptions, but the cases have to be exceptional for that to happen. So the question that the Heritage Foundation wants to know, how did he answer that? And should he be allowed in? Because America's a revolutionary country. It doesn't hold with princes. It got rid of them in 1776. It got rid of George III and all his descendants, of whom Prince Harry is one. So it's not going to bend over backwards to do favors to Prince Harry. President Biden has let it be known through spokesman that he would not act against Prince Harry. But President Trump, ex-President Trump, presidential contender Donald J. Trump, has indicated that he doesn't like what Prince Harry has been saying about the royal family, and if and when he becomes president, he would take a different view. Of course, Donald Trump's view of the Sussexes is very much clouded by the fact that Meghan Markle has said some very disobliging things about him. She's declared that she is an opponent of him. And indeed, when he was on an official visit as president to this country, she let it be known that she didn't want to meet him. And she obviously is committed to the Democrat cause and may indeed have political ambitions of her own. So President Trump is never going to be well disposed towards the Sussexes. At the moment, the decision is down to a federal judge. The papers have been released on orders of the White House. The federal judge will now decide whether or not to release the form that Prince Harry signed and filled in, we presume, when he applied for his visa, because it would be a very serious matter. If the visa were to be revoked, where would Prince Harry go? He would certainly have to leave the country fairly promptly. Canada wouldn't want him back because the federal government there, Ottawa, got fed up with paying for his security when he was living in British Columbia. Britain, well, of course, he's still a British citizen and he could return to Britain, but then where would he stay? He seems to have burned most of his bridges and most of his boats back to the land of his birth.
Do you feel as though Prince Harry's given up on the UK?
He says that he very much loves the country of his birth. And I think he misses it. I think he misses the rugby, he misses the football, he misses the camaraderie. Maybe he misses his friends, going to the pub, things like that. Normal things that men in of his age would be doing. He's coming up to 40 in September. I don't think he wants to have a final break, but everything he's done and everything he's said would indicate that that would be an inevitability. Never say never, of course, never say never. And I'm certain that His Majesty the King, Charles III, would always welcome his son. The prodigal son is always welcome. And as it says in the Bible, when the prodigal son, after doing all sorts of undesirable things, comes home, his father fell upon his neck, which in biblical terms means he embraced him. Whether King Charles would fall upon his neck in a different way were he to come back. But it has been speculated that Prince Harry might return for his 40th birthday in September. But one thing is absolutely certain in my mind: were he to do so, the chances of him meeting his older brother, Prince William, are between slim and none.
So do you feel as though there's almost no chance of reconciliation there?
In this world, men can put up with insults. My goodness, I've been insulted by experts in my time. But men do not like two things. They do not like their driving ability to be criticized unfairly, and they do not like their wives to be criticized at all, or their wives or their girlfriends or their significant others. They don't like that because they feel that somebody is attacking somebody who's close to them as a surrogate for themselves. In other words, getting at them by being unkind about people they care about. And what Prince Harry has done, and his wife have done, either through surrogate spokespeople or directly, is to criticize Kate, the Princess of Wales, who has done a brilliant job, in my humble opinion, as Princess of Wales. She hasn't put a foot wrong. She's been brilliant. If we went to central casting in Hollywood and asked them to cast a perfect princess, they would probably come up with somebody like Kate Middleton. But she has been roundly accused, and nasty things have been said, unkind things. But worst of all, the most egregious thing that could be said about her is the allegation of racism. Unspecified, but that she displayed a racist attitude towards Meghan Markle, presumably at the time she joined the royal family. Well, racism is an extremely toxic allegation to make, and it's a very unfair one because it's hard to disprove. You have to prove a negative. How do you refute it? By saying, well, I'm not a racist. Then you have to go and prove it. So it's unkind. And of course, the allegation was also made against the king when he was Prince of Wales as well. And these are very, very serious matters, because the king is not only the king of the United Kingdom and the king of 14 other realms throughout the world, he's also the head of the Commonwealth, which is a very diverse organization dedicated to freedom, democracy, and the rule of law. That's embarrassing. It's very unfair and unkind, without any evidence being given, to make that sort of charge. So it's very difficult for Prince William to reconcile with his brother. One can never say never, of course, but I think it would be required of Prince Harry to mend a lot of fences, maybe all the fences around the 20,000-acre Sandringham estate equivalent, and to eat humble pie about the size of Buckingham Palace to reconcile with his brother. At the moment, they are not speaking. They don't take each other's calls. There's no hope of reconciliation. One of the worst things you can ever see in life is brothers fighting. It's a terrible thing. Going back to Cain and Abel, it's a terrible thing. And with royal brothers, it's even worse. It's worse because the late Princess Diana, much missed, always believed that her two sons would be there for each other, would support each other, come thick or thin. To see them at daggers drawn, effectively, would be very, very upsetting for her. In fact, I don't think she could have believed it or conceived of it.
How do you think this links in with the fact that we've seen Meghan Markle launch her lifestyle wellbeing brand? She's just released her first product, which is some jam. We've got these Netflix deals going on.
The Duke and Duchess of Sussex now have to sing for their supper. They've wedded themselves to the commercial world. They have a $100 million contract with Netflix, and Netflix wants payback. It wants value for money. It wants its bang for its buck. And the two latest escapades, the two latest ventures by the Duke and Duchess of Sussex are going to be a lifestyle and cooking series presented by Meghan, but not at their house at Montecito, at a neighboring luxurious house, about lifestyle, food, furnishings. And that started off by making jam and distributing pots of jam to selected friends of hers. I haven't received my jar yet. And he, on his part, is going to do a series about polo. Now, that's hockey on horseback. That's not water polo. Water polo is very much favoured by his older brother, Prince William. But this is polo with ponies. Now, it's a very, very expensive sport. You need at least 2 polo ponies, preferably 4. You need at least 1 groom, preferably 2. It's one of the most expensive hobbies you could possibly have in the world, only exceeded perhaps by ocean-going yacht racing, which I've heard described as standing under a cold shower, ripping up 50-pound notes, because it's very, very expensive. How that will relate to the ethnic groups that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex are so keen to reach out to, I don't know. In Watts and in Compton and in other ethnic areas of South Los Angeles, I don't think there are many polo grounds. There are perhaps many, many basketball courts, but not polo grounds. So whether people will relate to that, I do not know. But it must be said that Prince Harry is an extremely good horseman, even better than his older brother. In fact, much better, I've heard on good authority. So he does know what he's talking about, and he's a good public speaker. So perhaps he will get more people interested in this sport. But of course, it is a very snobby sport, particularly in America. Particularly, anybody who's ever seen the film Pretty Woman will remember where the character Julia Roberts is playing, who is a prostitute, gets dressed up in a lovely, as I recall it, brown and polka dot dress and a lovely hat, and goes to the polo near Los Angeles to mix with the hoi polloi, to mix with the upper classes and pass in a very sort of Eliza Doolittle way as being acceptable, although she comes from humble origins. So polo is right up there. But this is all part of their need to make money, because they have a very expensive lifestyle. You can burn through a lot of money paying for round-the-clock security for 3 shifts of burly men to guard you. That can be very, very expensive. Also, the prince has several legal actions underway in Britain. In this world, wherever you go, there are 2 things which are never cheap and are always expensive: lobsters and lawyers. And the bill for his ill-judged action against the Home Office, the British Internal Ministry, has reportedly cost him £1 million already. And if he goes to appeal, it will cost him even more. I forecast, even on this program, that he would need leave to appeal, and I didn't think he would get it. And the judge who heard the case indeed refused him appeal, to the permission to appeal, which you do need in this country. So he now is contemplating going to the appeal court in order to press this case. The case itself, as I say, is misconceived, because what he was asking for was round-the-clock armed security whenever he or his wife, or together or separately, came into this country. It's not as if he doesn't get security. When he came to Britain after the king announced that he had cancer, he was met at Heathrow by 2 black Range Rovers, police Range Rovers, with armed police wall-to-wall inside them. And they took him to Clarence House, where the king was. And the following day, they took him back to Heathrow at the end of his 25-hour visit to this country. So he does get police protection. The Home Office, the Ministry of Interior here, says that we will decide the level of security depending upon the conditions that pertain at the time. He says, no, that's not good enough. I want it guaranteed all the time when I'm here. The judge presiding over this case said that there was nothing wrong with the procedural way that the Home Office had handled it. And of course, it's very, very expensive. The law is open to everyone, like the Ritz Hotel. But if you enter the law, be prepared to pay through the nose.
Michael Cole, thank you very much.